Your wife over there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there about it twice. Oh, it's all.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, meeting order, roll call, please.
Mayor Seeley.
Here.
Sarah Atkinson. Here. Pat Beckett.
Here.
Will Rolke.
Here.
Larry Rohr.
Here.
Art Schott.
Here.
Mike Tiedemann.
Here.
All right, item 3 on the agenda is the agenda. I'd like to make 3 recommendations to add. We do have a visitor to be heard from, Miss Officer Sheriff Grayson Lass. Is that correct?
Just Grayson.
Just Grayson. Grayson Lass would like to discuss an ordinance review. So we'll add that to item number 5, visitors to be heard. And then under committee and mayor reports, I would like to add a quick calendar review of our citywide or consolidated calendar, and then just a quick mention of the Feeding South Dakota effort to find some space to deliver their goods and services here in town.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Second.
Sure. Motion and second to adopt an amended agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. The agenda's that amended agenda has been adopted. Minutes from February 3rd, 2025.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda or the minutes from February 3rd, 2025. Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes from the February 3rd, 2025 meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The minutes have been approved. All right, visitors to be heard. So Grayson and I, Grayson's a Union County Sheriff. He's a very proactive young man in our community who lives on the north side of 46. Reached out to me not too long ago and wanted to have a discussion about ordinance. And so, Grayson, the floor is yours.
All right, despite my whole job being public speaking, a little nervous. Like Mayor Seeley said, my name is Grayson. I live on the north side of town. I live at 406 West North Maple Street. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me tonight. I'll try not to take up too much of your time. The ordinance in question, I guess we'll just get into it, is 5.0217 subsection E. I got copies of everything I'll hand out to you as well. Basically, it's the barking dog statute essentially, or the ordinance. I could have printed out the whole thing, but it's kind of a lot to digest all at once. You'll see on, as well as the Beresford ordinance, I've got the City of Brandon City ordinance. Then behind it, the I am too short, it looks like. That's all right.
Yeah, I've got a digital copy.
You guys need a copy?
The one on the second page is the City of Sioux Falls. I don't know if it's an ordinance or just their policy for annually this kind of issue. Give some backstory. My wife and I have lived at our home for about 3 years now. We've lived there with our 3 dogs. We have 2 German Shepherds and a Husky. Oddly enough, the Husky doesn't make any noise. Over the last 3 years, it's been brought to my attention, I think 4 times, 4 instances where somebody has made a complaint about my dogs barking. I'll be the first person to tell you they bark. If any one of you walks by my house, they're outside, they're gonna bark. It's their house too. They bark at people. Unfortunately, they kind of bark at cats sometimes, and they bark at tornado sirens. Those are really the main 3 things that they bark at. The reason I'm here tonight is recently it was brought to my attention by the police department that my dogs were barking. We were out of town. We were up in my in-laws' place, just north of Sioux Falls. I have cameras on the front and the back of my house. Immediately when he called me, before I even answered the phone, I knew what it was about. And I looked at the camera. By the time he called me, they'd already stopped barking. But Officer DeFries called me, let me know that my dogs were barking. There was a neighbor complaint. The neighbor wanted to stay anonymous. But they said that the dogs were disturbing them. It's their right to absolutely not speak with me about it. I understand not wanting to confront somebody about an issue, that's just fine. But I have not been spoken to by any of my neighbors about my dogs barking. It's only been brought to my attention, I think, by the same person each time, but again, she's anonymous, so I don't know who it was. Like I said, I'll be the first person to tell you my dogs bark. No question about it. But do they bark for extended periods of time, all day long? In my experience, I don't think I've ever seen them do that. If what they're barking at's not entertaining, if the neighbors aren't playing with their dog in their backyard, if the mailman's not at the door, and if there's not a cat running along the fence, we're probably not going to be real interested. They're going to go back to laying around and just relaxing. So I think in front of most of or each of you, there's an excerpt of the city ordinance in question. My reading of this as not an attorney basically says that any dog that makes any noise at any point is in violation of the ordinance. While I understand the spirit of the ordinance, in my opinion, it's a bit broad. It seems all encompassing. And I think I'm probably not the only person that's been able to go outside of their house and hear dogs barking just in the neighborhood. It's part of the sounds of the neighborhood. And as long as it does not go on all day, I don't seem to have an issue with it personally. Mary Seeley had talked about possible revisions to these city ordinance, which is why I've got the Brandon city ordinance as well as the Sioux Falls policy there. In summary, the Brandon city ordinance says that there must be 2 people from 2 separate households writing a written statement before any enforcement can take place. It says, quote, "A nuisance shall constitute an ongoing problem over several days and or at several intervals throughout a 24-hour period for any length of time," unquote. Personally, I like the verbiage of this ordinance because, like many state statutes, many other ordinances, it's specific, and it's targeted basically. And it outlines a way where the proper procedure can be done each and every time. Sioux Falls has something somewhat similar. An officer will respond to the area, park up the street and listen. If the barking continues steadily for several minutes, 8 to 10, the officer will knock on the door and attempt to make contact with the dog owners. Again, it gives more of a specificity to how long the issue must be going on before it becomes a problem. With that being said, if you do choose to not amend the ordinance, I don't fault you at all. I know it's a pain in the butt to change laws and ordinances and all that, especially when you got to talk to those guys over there to get it all approved. But I think I'm not the only one that's not necessarily bothered by dogs barking at certain things. Again, I'm the first person to tell you that my dogs certainly do bark, and I got about 240 pounds of dog, so they're not quiet either. But I think that's about all I have for tonight. Again, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I appreciate you all listening. So unless you guys have any questions about anything, I'll leave you to be.
Your dog's shot and tagged?
I believe they are.
You believe or you know?
My wife takes care of all that stuff. So
Okay, all right.
Outdoor kennel?
They're inside and outside.
Okay.
Yep, so my wife stays home, so anytime she hears them barking, she'll go knock on the window, yell at them. But yeah, they're inside and outside dogs with outdoor.
I know the ordinance is about dogs' behavior, but are you hoping that this changes people behavior in some way? I mean, if you could, as far as the neighborhood?
In what way?
Like the Sioux Falls one, it says, first step, talk to your neighbor. You know, I mean, is it like I mean, would you hope that? I mean, anonymous is anonymous, but.
And, you know, like I said, it's well within anybody's rights to not want to talk to somebody about a problem. If you're not comfortable confronting somebody, I'm not going to ask you to do that. With that being said, I would like to have a conversation with the neighbor before it gets reported. Kind of explain our situation to them, but certainly I don't think any requirement of somebody to speak with the person about it should be involved. I think that's a bit much.
I just got one question on this, for Tom. I know this is a little vague, but is there a time frame like sun up to sundown or a certain cutoff for noise for the city? Or just excessive barking?
No, it's not tied to any time of the day.
Yeah, that's all I was just wondering.
Yeah.
But the other ordinance, we do have an ordinance on dog tags, don't we? I believe we do.
Yeah, I
was just
don't
wondering.
know if anyone's ever been.
I know,
My
but I'm just
knowledge,
wondering.
cited for it.
No, I mean, if you
I
get the
assume the
tags,
college and got it kind of
Yeah.
resolved that way.
And obviously, given my position, I don't expect to be treated any different than
Yeah.
anybody else.
no, we're just wondering for shots, because if a dog bites somebody. the
Oh,
first thing-
I'm sorry, for shots. Yeah, 100%. They
Well,
are,
that's what they're gonna say. It was a dog shots with the rabies, so I was just trying to clarify to
Yeah.
not go after you.
they're all good on.
I
all that.
appreciate
Sorry,
you
I
moving
misheard
into
you.
town, appreciate everything you're doing. We're trying to get whatever information we can to
Yeah,
clarify this.
absolutely.
That's why I was wondering, what our options are.
I mean, you can certainly change the ordinance however you desire.
Once, I don't
I think
think,
this one came probably when we redid the ordinances 10, 15 years ago, I'm guessing.
And in my I don't mean to cut you off, but in my research, I did find that the Elk Point, Alcester, T, and several other cities have verbatim the same one. Somebody did it first and they said, oh, that's good, let's just.
Well, CCOG, Southeast Council of Governments, did a model ordinances, and Beresford did have a committee that sat through and did a review of all of those to make sure they were appropriate for Beresford. I don't assume there was any difference from the others with this, but it was all out of a model ordinance that CCOG did. And mostly in the small towns all around this area, that's why you saw it. They drafted it and
Yep.
most of the towns adopted it with their own tweaking of different portions, but apparently not on the working dog one, so.
Yep.
I just got one other question real quick. The reason why I was asking about the time limit, because, construction, and I'm asking about the time, because sometimes if somebody's using a nail gun or whatever, if they're busy during the day, it might be 3 hours. So what's the difference if a dog barks for 10 minutes versus some nail gun for 2 hours? I mean, we gotta be fair on the ordinance. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, I think it's a good idea, maybe to look into some of this. I mean, within reason. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're keeping half the neighborhood up, that's a different story.
Yep.
Or a neighbor that's doesn't like you or whatever. I'm just using an example.
Yeah.
I'd rather be as fair as we can, because I appreciate you're coming to town, appreciate the police department, everything you guys do, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So my recommendation is to try to maybe put something together, see what we could do to make it more thorough.
Yeah, I think we could plug into, so Tom mentioned CCOG, Southeastern Council of Governments. Maybe checking in with them to see if there's been any major movements in that space, I think they would be on the working end of some discussion there, and then checking with Mike Shirk and those guys to see, what's the volume look like, both perhaps pets and dogs barking, and maybe just noise disturbances in general. Because if we could be slightly more specific and just take the gray out of it, I think that would be a benefit. I like the fact that some of these seem like they're very mathematical versus just sort of a guess.
I like the idea of an ordinance having some latitude, but in this case, I think the latitude would be in the officer or someone who would say, look at it and say, well, look, here's what I think will resolve it, but it does seem like it, that there's too much latitude in this just to define what a problem actually is.
Mhm.
You know, time of day or length of time, because, I mean, there are several dogs on our street, and if there's somebody out in the yard or going through the back or to the door, my dog barks. But according to this, it wouldn't have to do that more than once or twice, and it could be considered a problem. When that's what dogs do.
Mhm.
So I think there is a little, the latitude on how you actually define this may be a little too broad, could be tightened up. But Sioux Falls made an attempt. I'm not sure that's the right complete answer, but
And I think Brandon's might be even a bit much for a city of our size, and of our capabilities to rely on somebody making two different people making two separate written complaints. I think that might be asking a bit much of not only the people who call it in, but the police department as well. Organizing that and facilitating that, it just seems kind of like a big city idea to me. But again, just ideas.
Or a way to wash your hands.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think what we can do is let's do some background research and then I'll communicate with you. And if we did, let's say we came to some level of consensus, because it sounds like there was at least enough consensus to look at it and consider what we might do insofar as revising it. You know, and it won't be an overnight process,
No.
but yeah, we'll try to come together and try to come up with something that helps you. But I think actually Larry hit the nail on the head, which is that if there are things that we can do that would promote neighbors talking to neighbors, you know, and granted, that's not everybody's gonna like that answer, but and we have to respect that. But at the same time, I think there's something we can do. So.
Absolutely. I've got one more copy of all this if somebody wants it. It's just, obviously it's fairly easy to find online, but I can leave it on the desk here if somebody'd like to take that with them, so.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
folks. Have a great night.
All right, go ahead and move along in the agenda. That was item number 5. Item number 6. Just a quick review of our calendar, our community-wide calendar. Just to remind everybody, it is the 6th tab at the top of our beresfordsd.com website. You open it, there are 3 events on the calendar this month, and I'd just like to highlight those for the purpose of the minutes. One that occurred last night, that occurred tonight, Foods for Health, Strength, and Vitality over at the library. And then there's an Aging Well workshop tomorrow that's being sponsored by a few folks in town that are working on behalf of the Health Council. And then on the 25th, there is a Foods for Health, Strength, and Vitality. It's the second in that series. I believe it's going on for about a month. One of the things that we want to be able to promote, and Jerry and Elaine and I have been batting some emails around, is trying to get, even though there are recurring meetings, i.e. Planning, zoning, HRC, Chamber of Commerce, we want to try to get those on there as well so that we can promote those meetings so that if there are people that need to engage with those groups, they can. Basically just for everyone's awareness. Any questions, any suggestions? I think eventually what I'm going to do is check with our web team and try to see what the traffic is on those sites to try to determine if this is producing a positive outcome. And then the next item I wanted to discuss is, so Feeding South Dakota works with a group here in town led by Mr. James Fitzgerald, affectionately known as the Moose, retired Navy veteran. Moose helps coordinate the distribution of food via the Feeding South Dakota program that formerly operated at the Set Free Church down the street here on 3rd Street. There were some changes in the way that program occurred, so they no longer able to use that location. They're looking for a backup location. They used the parking lot, and this is, I'm not absolutely sure of this, but I believe they used the parking lot of the Methodist Church on the southwest side of town most recently. And thanks, Kathy, I appreciate that. But there's a few more resources they need. One of the questions they had to me most recently is whether or not they could potentially use the old police station. Jerry rightly reminded me that we have some fairly sensitive equipment that exists in that building. A clear water well, water diagnostic or testing equipment. And we may not have, and the building is, at least at one point in time, did have some mold. So it wasn't maybe not the most clean environment. It doesn't have any refrigeration. It doesn't have any, some of the same resources that we enjoyed at the Set Free Church. There would be some other potential implications if we used it, or if we did look at using that to distribute food on their schedule, i.e. what's the traffic pattern going to look like? Is it going to potentially affect the way that things happen in that neighborhood? So they need space now that Feeding South Dakota's come back and they want to work with Moose. They want to work with that team. I think Joanne Paulson's also part of it. They want to try to find a place that they can use on a regular recurring basis because there are about 100 families that will take food from Feeding South Dakota. So I don't think in the near term, I don't think the police station will probably be the right answer based on the things that Jerry was able to provide, the information he was able to provide. Would there be alternate locations? Could we potentially use some of the other? So the problem is if we rotate the location, some of the resources that they need, i.e. refrigeration, that may be called into question. And so
is it just for the unloading and sorting that they need the space?
it sounds like it's a process of, so the truck comes, they break it down into, so I think based on the quantities that come in, my understanding is they break it down so that they can deliver, so if they get 6 crates of bananas, they'll take those 6 crates and they'll just distribute it equally so that they can hand out about 100 handouts. And then same thing, so sometimes they'll get bread, sometimes they'll get eggs, sometimes they'll get other things. And so I know that they've used the parking lot, but I know that that's probably tough to do it from the back of the truck.
I actually saw them doing it, the parking lot worked nice because the cars could line up.
Yeah.
And they had good flow with people going through, but my question was the same thing, Pat, about storage or other working space that might be needed regularly.
Moose had talked to me about it too, and he said something that would be really nice is like a dock door or something with even just, now, even if it's not a full line dock, just to facilitate getting stuff off the truck. But I don't know if there's anywhere in town that has that. But I got more of the impression there was, when the truck comes to get it off, get it sorted, get it, into the different,
Together a box and
packaged up,
Yeah.
and then, as far as refrigeration and stuff, didn't sound like that was.
Are we talking once a week, twice a week? How often are we talking?
I think they go once a week on Thursdays. That's my understanding. I think they may have backed off because there was a gap in distribution. I think they're maybe not as frequent right now, but
what's the time frame when they do, are they like a 2 or 3 hour period of serving people and then maybe a certain amount of setup time in front?
I know that when they were set up at Set Free, they would be there in the mornings and they would be there till food ran out. And I think that was around 2 to 3 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So back in the days when I used to run around town, I'd see Moose setting up, 7 or 8 in the morning over at Set Free. And so I think it's the bulk of the day. So I think there's still a lot of information we need before we could, number one, I don't think the old police station unfortunately will not work, but it was a good idea. I'm gonna try to go visit with them and try to participate in one of their distributions. And just try to get a feel for what they actually need. Because I think there's grand goal in the sky, and then there's just what they need to be able to do what they can at the bare minimum.
How much refrigeration space do they need?
They Set Free bought a very large refrigerator. It sounded like refrigerator freezer. I'm not sure, but it was more than I had assumed in the beginning. And I don't, and then, there's some questions too that came up in our discussion about how much if there's a requirement for garbage after the fact, say something's not distributed, what happens to that? Does it go back to Sioux Falls? because their headquarters is up by, just north of the Pentagon. So I think there's a lot of open-ended questions, so I'll visit with the POCs, and I'll try to visit them one day when they're distributing food, and then I'll come back to the next council meeting with some more information. In the meantime, if everybody could consider what might be a good location and what, because if those families are, they're obviously, they're in need. I mean, if there's 100 families that are taking food, then we would want to be able to support that.
Just off the top of my head, I was wondering about the senior citizen center. Are they busy on Thursdays? Is it?
I don't know, Art, has that ever been presented to the leadership there? As an opportunity, because they have a,
I think the biggest problem over there, utility bills, the insurance went up triple, it was 700, now it's 2,100 a year. They got the surcharge for the Palms 37 utility bills went up, our membership cut in half. We do the best we can to survive. I've been on the board 9 years, plus I've been there probably 15 years. We do whatever we can to get by.
Mhm.
The only one that cuts the deal that I know is either Joanne or Darla Jacob. She's the president, but I mean, if there's any room there, the city gave them money for refrigerators and freezers, so we're replacing some refrigerators that are bad. So we rent out on Sundays to the VFW, as you already know, and most of the refrigerators are full of stuff, so
Yeah.
I don't think we'd have any spare ones. We already got 2 or 3 refrigerators, I think a freezer plugged in. So, I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but I would talk to,
Yeah.
Joanne or Darla, they're the bosses.
Yeah.
I'm still a member, but I can vote, but I'm only one vote.
All right, any other comments, anything you need to consider? No,
Just figuring out what the process is and
Yeah.
knowing what's needed is, will help a ton to figure out where we can come up with.
all right, I'll come back to the next information that we can consider, on the way ahead, so. All right, we'll move along in the agenda, item number 7, Miss Elaine Johnson and our January financial.
So everybody should have a copy of the January financial report. A couple of the out of the ordinary expenses. The electric department purchased their budgeted Larson cable trailer. It came in at $46,845. We paid Gil Haugen Construction for the golf course patio addition, $49,331. We retained Joel Johnson. He is going to be our code enforcer for $1,500 as a retainer fee. The wastewater treatment facility Sager system, we paid Siteworks $81,873. And then some out of the ordinary revenue, the school paid for their portion of the girls softball field scoreboard, they paid $17,214. So those are the little out of the ordinary expenses for January.
All budgeted for it, all right?
Yep. That is all I have for January's report.
Shall I make a motion for Elaine Johnson, Finance Officer, January 2025 financial report as stated. Approved.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the January 2025 financial report. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Financial report approved. And the 2024 audit engagement letter with ELO, CPA and advisors.
Early in the year, we previously approved this, but with the federal funding for our projects for the sewer system and the pipelining comes federal money, comes a federal audit. And so there's an additional $4,000 that we would need to pay ELO to conduct our federal audit. That was a happy surprise. The $4,000 is not budgeted.
Need a motion on that? Shall I make a motion for 2024 annual audit engagement letter? Excuse me, with ELO, CPAs and advisors, as Elaine Johnson stated.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the 2024 annual audit engagement letter with yellow CPA and advisors. And the excess amount of $4,000. All right, any further discussion?
Is this the first time that this federal thing has come up?
Yes,
We just haven't had an instance with a grant where that would have been part of the discussion in the past.
so you need to receive at least $750,000 in federal funding to be required to do an
You're doing
audit.
that all the time, aren't you?
So, Amy,
Okay,
Should we wait to see if these auditors are gonna retain their job?
these auditors should.
Oh.
Once it gets to the next level, I'm not sure. It might just go into a mailbox of nowhere. I don't know.
so basically they have to replicate work of the style of work, but with a new,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Luckily, ELO has a great auditor. I'm working with Alex, and I've never been through one of these before, and he's been great.
Yeah, I got an impression from Congressman Johnson that he had a phone call with mayors in the southeast part of the state in December, trying to anticipate how the new administration, how things would work and what are the things that we need to try to lean forward or lean into. And he admitted that he thinks federal funding will decrease. Anything that's already appropriated will continue to be spent. But in the out years, in the next fiscal year and beyond, the likelihood that there will be the same number of dollars available is pretty low. So I would assume this will be a one-off. I don't know that we'll be able to reach that threshold again. Who knows, but yeah.
Since our projects are not going to be completed in 20, or they'll be wrapping up in 25, we'll have another one next year.
Okay, so same. problem.
Well, we can vote
At least
for
we
that.
can expect that, yeah.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. No old business, new business for the council. Abatement request for Lincoln County parcel 260.50.32.010.
We got a bill for taxes. I think most of you probably have gotten yours, and we noticed that they were taxing us for the Bach property, which we had bought I believe last year, January last year. So we were applying to have those taxes waived. I don't know what how that happens, but from time to time, we do send all the information down. They don't catch it and they don't take us as a tax exempt entity. So we're just we're gonna go ahead and have it abated if that's okay with you guys, and just need a motion to do so.
Okay, shall make a motion for the abatement request for Lincoln County parcel 260.50.32.010, as Jerry Simon stated. Do I need something else in that?
That'll work hard.
Thank you.
Motion and a second on the table to approve the abatement request for Lincoln County parcel 260.50.32.010. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Abatement request approved.
Well, there you go, Elaine. That's about 60% of your federal audit.
There you go.
All right.
Every penny counts.
Yeah. Next item, new business, authorized advertising for ball field parking, paving, lot paving, striping and signage.
I just quickly, we do have all the plans and specs ready to go now, banners, so we can go ahead and start authorizing that. Just ahead, the parking lot's gonna have 101 spaces. 5 of those 101 are gonna be handicapped. The size of the parking spaces are 10 foot wide by 19 or 20 foot long, depending on if you're on the sides or in the middle. And there is a 24 foot, right of way between the parking areas. So it should be plenty big for everyone to get around. And I think our main focus on getting this done as soon as possible is that we want to get those lines on there so people know where to park. Otherwise, we're gonna have a parking lot that should hold over 100 people that get in, because no one's gonna know how to park. So we're ready to move forward. There's a couple things we have to do prior to that. And I'm working with Kelly to get some quotes to do some concrete work around the existing building and where we're gonna put our dumpsters. And we're also doing some sidewalk over to the batting cage so the kids aren't walking through the grass all the time, killing that grass. So that would be the idea anyhow. So we're gonna get some quotes to finish off some of those type of things. And then once that's done, they can come in and pave. We've indicated that as soon as the paving asphalt plants are open, we'd like to have it done, but we can't really control that. But we did put a final date of May 31st on there. I've already got some people interested in doing it, so I don't think it's a long project. It's probably just a couple day project and they'll be done. Most of these guys got the capability of bringing a lot of trucks down and getting this done probably in less than a day as far as the paving goes. There's a little bit of prep work involved. They'll probably do that the day before, so the sooner the better. I think we want to have that done once the kids are out there playing and grandpas and grandmas, moms and dads have a place to park. So we're asking for to go ahead and advertise for bids and we'll open them and have them at the next meeting,
Yes, the 17th.
17th meeting. Yeah,
I got one question. Is that asphalt gonna be 4 or 6 inches?
that's gonna be 4.
Okay.
What's the estimated cost on those?
I don't have an estimated cost on there for sure. We're looking about 150,000 is what we had anticipated previously. We had budgeted 75,000 just for the asphalt before, when we were first started talking about this, so. Of course, those prices have gone up in the last 3 years also, so.
I'll make a motion to authorize advertising for baseball field and lot paving, striping and signage as Jerry Simon stated.
Second.
A motion and second to authorize advertising for ball field parking, lot paving, striping and signage. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, new business, pay request for a new parks and golf maintenance building for Twite Construction.
Yeah, they have dropped as a pay request off at 155,799.31. And visiting with him, his date for substantial completion is April 1. Everything's probably not going to be done by then, but the building itself is pretty well ready. We will probably not have the gas into the building yet, so it could delay a few things getting done. But we will have electricity in there by then, but there is some time for the natural gas. People won't come out and start digging until the frost is out of the ground. So we have our request in, but we don't know exactly when they'll be coming in, so we can get that done.
What will be the remainder after this?
We won't have water or sewer there yet either until the 7th Street extension is done. So we have a few things there that we're not gonna be able to do a lot of the stuff that we will eventually, so they'll still be using the same restrooms and the same water areas until those are done, so.
I mean, with Dave, Dwight,
Let's say
how much what we still owe him after this is?
685,000, Elaine, how much have we paid them? Do you remember? I think we paid them just a little over half, if I remember right.
I would agree with that. And then.
It's probably a little higher than half of it.
Yeah, this would be more than that.
Because right now, they're getting all the electricity. They should have done the walkthrough. I think they had their inspection on that, their state inspection, and the plumbing had their state inspection. So next thing we'll be doing is some insulation, and then we'll be putting up some walls. And obviously we want a little bit more heat in there before we do some of the sheet rocking and things like that. We can't really mud them until we get some heat in there. So, and I know he is running some heat, but at this temperature, he probably doesn't have enough to keep the whole 6,000 square feet heated. So anyhow, so it's moving along, and he's aware of the time frame.
I make a motion for pay request invoice number 1954 for $155,799.31.
I do have one question. On the excise tax, as a city entity, do we?
We do pay excise,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. We don't pay sales tax, but we do,
Okay.
but they quite have to pay sales tax on the stuff that he buys. We don't pay it on top of that, so.
Okay. Second.
Motion second on the table to authorize payment request for Parks and Golf Maintenance Building for Twite Construction. Invoice 1954 in the amount of $155,799.31. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, authorize advertising for seasonal employees when it's gonna be warm, right?
What's that? What is warm now? That would include all of our park employees, our swimming pool manager, and talking with our department heads. Jeff would like to still try to get 2 people to help out throughout the summer with a lot of the projects that they do around town, which would be the public works, and then we're looking to hire 1 in the electric department to assist with the same things that we've done every summer. They're kind of our go-to person, our runner, mower, cleaner, all that kind of stuff. So give somebody some experience for a couple months a year of the summer anyhow. So that's what we're looking to do this year. Not much different than last year, so.
I'll make a motion for advertise Authorize advertising for seasonal employees by Jerry and Elaine.
Second,
A motion and second on the table to authorize advertising for seasonal employees. Any further discussion?
Jerry, when I was in graduated high school before I went to college the first year, I was the gopher for electricians.
Yeah.
It's called a groundman.
We'll call it that then.
Groundman.
Numbers about the same, overall numbers? As far as like the total number of,
I don't think he's gonna have as many,
In parks.
in the park or in the,
weren't they stepping on each other a little bit last year? Yeah.
what is that position?
The pool attendant.
Attendance, pool attendants. He said we were way overstaffed last year, so we want to cut that back.
We still have to probably negotiate or figure out if our lifeguard fees are adequate to
Yeah. And,
hire and retain.
I was looking at Canton and they just hired their pool manager and their assistant pool manager and their wages are quite a bit higher, but they've got the same person back for 15 years straight. So it's someone that, I think they figure $25 an hour to come and do that, so. It'd be nice if we could find someone that would come back that's got a little bit more experience dealing with kids. I mean, most of ours are 17, 18 and under, so it'd be nice to have someone that's not 19 years old trying to teach, oversee an 18-year-old and 17-year-old, so.
I mean, how many years in a row has it been that senior person has rotated? I feel like
Pretty regular, about
yeah,
every year.
1 year, right?
Mhm.
Once
We had
they get
one
one
that lasted for about 6 years and that was nice, but,
Yeah.
It's tough when you're a new one in there every year. Makes it very tough, so we'd like to see somebody, and, we may come back and talk about that more at the next meeting. Kelly and I've had some discussion, but maybe offering a little bit more, maybe we can get somebody that's got a little bit more the ability to take care of younger kids better than what we have right now.
Yeah, one of the complaints that I've heard is that that becomes the toughest part of the job, is that you become a de facto babysitter and, issuing justice at the pool. Is,
So the one in Cam, she does have all the lifeguard certificates and all that kind of stuff, so. Would we find somebody with those type of abilities here in Beresford, we don't know. But even if we had somebody that could manage the pool without those certificates, just to take care of all the kids and make sure they're where they're supposed to be, what they're doing and oversee them that way. There would be definitely some benefit in doing that as long as we have enough lifeguard training people available, so.
people management versus actual
Yes.
lifeguard.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. I think it'd make everyone's job a lot easier if we had that type of person there. All right, we'll start with the advertisement and we'll see where it takes us.
So motion second on the table, any other further discussion? All those in favor of authorizing advertising for seasonal employees, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Chamber of Commerce request to use the Bridges Event Center. I was approached by the president of our Chamber of Commerce, Lakin Atwood, and Shania Rosenboom, who owns Rainy Day. They've joined forces with Joanne, and they would like to use the Bridges Event Center for a chamber mixer. Jerry and I were talking about this the other day. We were talking about a reduced fee. Each one of the chamber members is responsible for hosting an event each year. So we believe that as the city, we could authorize the use of the Bridges Event Center at no cost. And that would qualify as a chamber member of the city is, that would qualify as our participation. I think trying to give the chamber as much forward momentum as possible, because I feel like they're doing a great job just in the past 4 or 5 months. I think whatever we can do to help them succeed is, because they are looking at adding members and kind of revitalizing continuing what Joanne's done, but then also adding a few new capabilities, so.
So you made a comment on the chamber. Is that free or is there a fee or a one-time use?
I would like to propose that it is free this time for their chamber mixer, and that counts as the
Oh.
city.
Okay, one time you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a date?
I believe Shania let me know that is the 21st of March. I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe it's before this golf season would get hot and heavy, and
And they would use the events area or?
Well, March 21st and, most likely they would need enough space. They would probably use the entire event space, but. Cause last time that, when John Erlinson was in charge of the chamber mixer, I think they had wasn't the greatest turnout. So I think they're looking for ways to amp that up a little bit.
So how would you put that in a motion? Part of the golf course, all the golf course, the bar area?
Just a chamber mixer, it don't matter.
Okay.
I mean, if they want to do the bar area, we don't have a problem with that, it's just if we open up special for them,
All right.
we, you know, no, we gotta bring people in to
Just
take care of
checking.
that, so.
Don't get excited. Chamber of Commerce request to use the Bridges event for free one time on March 21st, 2025. For a chamber mixer.
Motion and a second on the table to authorize free use of the Bridges Event Center for the Chamber of Commerce and their chamber mixer on the 21st of March. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Next line item on the agenda is sponsorship agreement for the ball field complex.
Mike, you wanna run through that, just kind of update people so they know what it is?
Yeah,
That's
the
all we need, I think.
Parks Committee got together and we were discussing ways we can continue to bring more revenue into the new complex, and we decided that we should somehow figure out a way to have naming rights potentially for the entire complex. And then we had some ideas of breaking it down to different fields. There's opportunities to have your business sponsor a field or concession building. And we worked with Tom to draft this contract that will be given to people that are gonna be solicited for sponsorships. And we're gonna be working with Matt Storrow. He's the head softball coach. He's gonna be going out and getting sponsorships for girls softball, and he will bring this with him to potentially put in front of businesses as well as an option. And we would work with them to figure out how the money would be dispersed, but use these funds for maintaining the fields and helping pay for the people that are gonna be working out there. And mostly the money will be coming back to the city, but it'll be all for ball field maintenance and employment. So.
And just to add to what Mike said, I did participate in one of the first few meetings where they discussed this. I did reach out to a person in leadership in a larger business in this community. And this person said that they would be in favor of doing something like this. They felt like the sponsorship opportunities in the past, which were fairly small, and I think Scott managed them on $100 and $200 per year basis. They weren't quite worth the investment. So they said if it was more where they could put their name out there, probably in a larger format, they would be willing to do that. So we received some positive feedback.
And the money they donate will go towards getting a sign made. Probably put on the center field fence. And there wouldn't be any other signage out there other than that business that's sponsoring that field. So, and then the naming rights are based upon however many years they want to sign a contract for. Like the ball field complex probably won't be named. We were talking about doing like a overall arching name. We haven't come up with an idea for that, but then so it'd be like the Beresford baseball softball complex sponsored by, and their name would be on it for any number of years that they're willing to sign an agreement for. So we were throwing around ideas as to how we could come up with a naming of the overall complex, and we haven't decided on that yet.
Yeah, there's some analogies to the way that pro sports teams and college sports teams now have looked for different opportunities to recognize individuals. So for instance, at Iowa City, they call the field is actually called Duke Slater Field. And then they named the stadium's obviously named after the Heisman Trophy winner, 1939, Kinnick. So, I mean, it's just now they've got field, they've got the entire complex, they've more opportunities. And that one's more in recognition of the people that played there. But then I think there are also opportunities for us to look at ways to sponsor this, because I do think there are people that we'll step forward. Last year for the 14U state tournament, we made a little under $2,000 in a fairly short period of time because we volunteered to host a tournament later in the year because it was Dakota Valley was unable to because of the flooding. So I think there's great opportunity. So I think this is a good thing.
Thank you to Tom for helping us put the verbiage together on the contract.
I think that's the fields wrong, right?
You know,
It's a 2, 3, and 4.
number one is a softball.
Yeah.
But that'll be taken care of the last shot already.
Yeah, it'll be 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. Need a motion on this or anything, or just informational?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. All right, no other new business. We'll move, no discussion or information items, one travel request for Chief Shirk Officer Bullis, Sergeant Bullis, excuse me. Deadwood, South Dakota, April 14th, 17th, Police Chiefs Sheriff's Annual Conference.
Make a motion to approve the travel request for Chief Shirk and Sergeant Bullis to Deadwood, April 14th.
Shot, second. Should April 14th to the 17th.
17th, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to authorize travel requests. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. That's part of the meeting.
We make a motion that we pay the bills.
Motion and second to pay the bills. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Bills will be paid. Any further business for the council? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
He has
If there's a model
He's teaching
consistency out of
now.
Ward 1.
He's teaching.
Just one.
Yeah, he's doing, he's doing math.
We'll take it just tomorrow.
He still is.
Still thinking about going to science, I'm just like, the support's going on kids.
No, we saw the film, and stop ringing next month. We try to put that overhang and then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he tried to do that all himself, so I applaud him for his efforts.
Yeah, but.
And it was good intention for it. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
No, he was there.
Yeah.
Center field or.
he lent a lot of personal time to